So, yeah. Hi, welcome. I'm Jen. I've got my cup of coffee. I'm going to be talking about some supported spindles later. So, if you are new to the live streams, I'm pretty much just going to ramble about whatever and try to kind of keep things based on a theme. In this case, supported spindles, but in past streams, I've kind of just ended up talking about a lot of different things. So I've got my chat screen up over here, so I can. Oh no, are we still live? I'm being told there's a playback error. Hang on. Is anyone else here? Okay, well, it wouldn't be a day without some struggles. Can you see me? Because I've got, okay, well, I'm glad you can see me. I've got some errors on my screen here, and I've got some errors on my screen here. So, I actually have no idea what's going on with that, but if other people can see me and hear me, then I'll just keep moving forward. Anyway, so if you just want to keep popping some things into the chat to reassure me that the technology is working out, because this is an error I've never encountered before, and so, yeah, don't know what to do about it. Oh dear. Well, so I'll just carry on, I guess, for now. Yeah, okay. I can't tell if this is being seen by anybody. And so I don't want to just be talking for an hour to myself in the front room. So what I might do is, like, so I have a screen up here and it shows that there's only one person watching and it's me. And on this screen, it's just got an error. So I don't even have confirmation that it's working over there. So I'm not sure what the problem is. It could be that my internet has been kicking out, and so maybe that's part of the reason, the reason why. Oh my goodness. Okay, so for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I was able to get some of these really lovely Tibetan style supported spindles from a local wood turner who is a hobbyist. And I was doing something else for a project. You remember a few weeks ago I was talking about these little duck scarves? And so I made them a whole bunch of these little scarves, which went over really well. And then I was asking about spindles, because if you bought from me back in 2010, 11, 12, you'll know that I had a lot of spindles available for sale, and then I would pair it with some wool so that you could have a go at learning how to make yarn. And then later on I started doing tutorials on YouTube to kind of support that element. but it's really difficult making decent spindles when you don't know anything about wood turning or carpentry, and so I've kind of let it go over the years, even though I've really wanted to just have sets available for people who are interested in spinning, because if you're like me, I'm really impatient. I want to get everything from one shop to pay for shipping once. So when I was talking to her, and she's like, yeah, I think I could do something like that. And so she went off, had a play, came back with a prototype, and then also a second batch. So these are the ones that I'm test spinning. And I'm very excited because they are supported spindles rather than suspended spindles. So suspended spindles are the ones that you rotate in the air, right? And a supported spindle has the support of either a bowl like this or your lap. And so, yeah, just out of the blue, she stopped by my house and dropped off about 10 of these, I think, or 12 of them total. And basically said, well, just give me some feedback and we'll take it from there. So she's been very willing and open, which is something that I find particularly useful with craftworks, because as many of you know, it takes a long time to do what we do, and so we don't need the pressure of like getting something done immediately, because our hands only work so fast, or our feet only work so fast. So yeah, like just have a play. So I've been test spinning these, and when I was doing the initial test spin with her, I found this one which has a large amount of wobble, and she said, I knew when I was doing my initial spin after it was done that it probably wasn't going to be a very good spindle. So that's sort of what led to today's discussion topic, which is, what about wobble? Now, I'm going to try and thumb back and forth between talking to you guys directly and test spinning these and answering some things in the chat. And I'm hoping this setup is going to be a little easier than the one last time, because I'm right-handed, and so this setup makes more sense. So Crystal's asked, what's the concern over wobble? Chris was asking, or has been researching about supported spindles and how makers reduce the potential for wobble. So there's a few things. This spindle is created out of 3 pieces. So there's this shaft part, then there's this tip at the end, and then there's the whorl. And when it is being turned, there's a I think it's called a shoulder. So it's basically an inset into the spindle here and here, where you have to get them lined up just right, and you have to have it set perfectly in the middle of the spindle whorl, so that when you put on this end and this end, when you rotate it, it's perfectly balanced radially from that point. And if it isn't, you actually can tell the wobble. So this one is fairly well set. There's just a little bit of wobble at the top, because if you see that tapering point, I have some better photos on my Patreon. This tapering point, I kind of prefer it to be slightly longer, but that wobble is generated because of me, not because of the spindle. I'm trying to literally balance too many things at once here. So later on I'm going to refocus it so that the screen is a little bit further down so you can see this better. But this one that has the large amount of wobble, it has a nicer taper at the end. I don't know if you can really see that with my terrible phone camera. I wish I could see it on the screen here, because that sort of helps. I might just do a little quick dab on the camera. Okay. And we're back. Yeah, so this one has a really nice taper on the end. And because of this taper, you can actually, there's a really nice amount of twist that you can get into it. But if you see just how much more it's wobbling than the other, it's pretty significant. And in the bowl, you can actually see that the point, rather than staying in one spot, it's kind of moving a little bit. And that's because of the weight of the whirl. It's sort of dragging the spindle around, kind of like Earth precession, how it's got that 23 1/4 or 23.5 degree offset on its axis. So that wobble is sort of creating a tiny little circle in the bowl. And so because of that, it's actually accentuating the wobble. And so she was going to take this one back and try and work out how to deal with this. And I said, you know, I'm pretty sure there is a great video tutorial as a topic for this, and I might actually have a couple of different discussion points with this. So I'm going to hold on to it and think about wobble and just how significant the wobble really needs to be annoying to a spinner. Now, there's obviously a caveat here that I've been spinning for over 10 years, and so is it my expertise and my ability to manipulate the tool and the fiber that allows me to do this, or not? So it's kind of unfortunate because the whirl is really pretty, and I really like the taper on this end so that I can have a really efficient flick of the twist. So I imagine that if you were really good at long draw and you wanted to spin with a high amount of twist with like a thinner yarn, then you can actually be much more efficient with this type of spindle shaft. Ooh, I can maybe show you a comparison with this one. So the one that has this thinner taper versus this one with a thicker taper, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, so this, it's a little bit thicker right here than it is right here. So when I give it a flick, I'm twisting it from here, right? And so if this is thinner than this is, then I can get a faster flick on this than I can on this one. But again, the wobble is the issue. Oh, this one is actually much skinnier in this region than it is here. And I think aesthetically, I don't like it just because there's this big bulbous point right here. But I think overall, these spindles, from a person who literally was just asked, hey, can you make spindles? They did an amazing job getting this going. And this little spot right here is more accentuated on this one than it is on some of the others. And this is where you can attach some, like your starting leader wool right here, so that it has something to clamp onto as you are beginning to spin. I've seen this on some spindles, not all spindles will have it, but I kind of like it as a nice feature, because when you are a beginner especially, having something on the tool that aids you learning to use it, they're kind of like training wheels, but you know, sometimes it's just really convenient to have, even though you don't need training wheels anymore. So I'm going to show you how I get these started, because unfortunately in my supported spindle tutorial I kind of glossed over how to get it started because I was focused more on the mechanics of the spinning. So I will be doing that here shortly and finishing the last sip of my coffee. So let's take a quick look at the questions. Okay, so it's It's weird because now the comments are coming up on the screen, but I still don't have any visual feedback. So if anything visually happens, just let me know, and I'll see if there's anything I can do. I doubt it, but you never know. Okay, so hi everybody. Oh, we've got quite a few now. Wow, 13 of you. That's great. Oh, yeah, Chris. I think I just answered your question. I do find that a thicker end on the spindle doesn't go as fast. Now, because I am normally twisting this with my left hand, I'm gonna try and demonstrate it this way. So this one has the thinner tip, and it goes on for a really, really long time. Ideally, because these whorls are actually quite heavy, supported spindles can be much heavier than suspended spindles because the weight of the spindle isn't being supported by the yarn. And so if you want to have something that has a long continuous spin, you want something that's a little heavier, especially since it's going to be sitting in something creating friction. That's going to slow it down. But this actually has a very nice length of spin. So I talked a little bit about this in my thesis. There are rotational indices that you can create that take the spindle whorl into consideration with how it might have been used in terms of methods of spinning, but also types of fibers it might be well suited for. And I think that's actually a really great way to consider spindle whorls, because some people will just say, oh, if it's, you know, fits in these kinds of parameters, then it's a spindle whorl, and if it doesn't, then it isn't. But I think moment of inertia is really important as a metric to consider spindle whorls, because it's it gives us some leveled information about how we can compare spindles from different time periods together. And so if you're just talking about them in terms of physics, then the region where you got them from or the archaeological period that you got them from doesn't matter. So you're just considering what the possibilities are, and then you can use those moment of inertia numbers to make comparisons based on known examples. So this is one of the things I did in my thesis, and unfortunately it's a very long chapter and I can't condense it all to this point, but spin time is an important element in identifying the practicalities of a certain type of rotationally symmetrical object being a spindle whorl. And so something I hadn't considered and isn't usually considered is were people using a supported spindle in the past, which this this shaft actually might impact the way that we understand textile technology in prehistory, because these little things, the spindle shaft actually matter in terms of mechanically how they are used during the production of yarn. So that is a really nice quick spin. And then this one, which I will try my best to compare side by side. So this one is much thicker than this one, right? And so they should be approximately the same, although I think this one weighs a little less. If I put it in here, you may be able to note that it just doesn't spin quite as fast at the start, and it doesn't last quite as long. Something I might do just for fun is create a rotational index of all of the spindles that I have here, just to see what the range is. But I imagine that this would be really good for longer staple wools. So with a longer staple wool, you don't need as many twists per inch. And so if you wanted to use something like Lincoln, for example, it's got like a 5, 6, 7 inch staple. So I think with this, you might be able to get enough weight to begin the twisting process so you're not fighting a spindle whorl that's slowing down too much. And you're still able to make a nice lofty yarn with a longer stapled wool because you're not getting so many twists into it at the same time. So this is what I think so far. I haven't been able to try these because I want to kind of give them as much dedicated energy as possible, and I've basically worked all day for the last 2 days. And I literally woke up from a nap at 3:30 today. Yep. So I do think there's something to do with how it's tapered, although it's to a point. It is highly contingent on your method of spinning. It also matters what wool you're spinning. It matters the type of finished yarn you want to have. And so it might matter more to some people than to others. I think in the future, what I'm going to do when I actually get around to selling these is I will make some general guidelines based on my tests and my experience using them and my collective expertise with working with different wools to get sort of like a baseline. If you want this type of yarn, you know, aim for this type of supported spindle. And I probably need to do some more research to see what other supported spindlers do say. So if you are a supported spindler, please give me some of your insights because, you know, I'm just interested in general, like how the world of supported spindling is set up because I'm still kind of new to it. I have done a few things, I just don't have the expertise of everybody, which is probably a good thing. Okay, no worries about being late. I think actually we ended up being a few minutes late starting the stream because of technical difficulties. You didn't miss much. Yeah, so Sonia has said that a spindle that has a thinner bit closer to the whorl and a thicker bit towards the rim will go faster. And actually, so these are actually cut flat here, but I have a couple that I've already test spun and they're, you know, in an inconvenient location at the moment, so I can't just grab them, but they're kind of cup shaped, and so it's that same principle of putting the weight towards the outside. When I was little, I was a figure skater, and when you are doing spins, you use your arms out to kind of maintain your balance, right? And that has a great leveling effect. And then when you pull them in, you make yourself tighter and denser and you spin faster. And if you have a spindle whorl that has more weight on the outside and then a little bit of weight in the middle between the outside and the core, then you get the balancing effect from having the arms out, but you still have more of that weight towards the middle so that you get the best combination of balance but speed. Hopefully that makes sense. I really like the golden ring spindles for that reason, so I'll just grab it real quick. So this is my golden ring spindle. And it's that same principle where you've got this like brass part on the outside. So that's going to give this more weight. And then it's thicker on the outside part here. It gets thinner and then it gets thicker back again here. And if you can see, if I pull this down a little bit, maybe you can see that. There's actually a bit of the brass right there next to the perforation of the spindle whorl. Maybe. Yeah, so despite the fact that this one is very delicate and made out of a lightweight wood, it weighs 17 grams in total and it spins very fast. And so I've used this to make lots of different types of yarns. It doesn't hold a lot of, well, I usually don't end up putting a lot on here, mainly because I'm concerned about weakening my yarns if it's too full. But aside from that, actually, I think I have a couple of different fibers on here. So I've got a green fiber on here that is silk, and then overlaying that I've got flax, and then I think this is a sample of North Ronaldsay. So when I was trying to decide which spindle to use, I realized I don't want to spin the silk on here. It was silk hankies, and then when I was doing the flax, I'm like, this isn't heavy enough for the flax. And then when I did the North Ronaldsay, I was like, this is producing a really rough and gross yarn, and I don't want to use it. But I love these spindles. They're very expensive, but I have 2 of them, but they are so worth the price. I've had them for like 8 years now, and I always go back to them. Although I don't do many tutorials with them anymore, so maybe I will do that. Yeah, so a thinner shaft on the drop spindle, right? You will get a really nice, I'm not demonstrating this very well, but yes, you will get a very nice flick, because this motion that you're doing, it's sort of like, I'm going to explain this in the wrong way, but it's sort of like how that distance around, if this has a smaller distance, you can get more rotations out of it than if it's larger, because you don't get that full twist action. And so for this point to make it around once takes less time than a larger diameter spindle shaft. And so it basically, these 2 factors relate. So if you want a lightweight spindle whirl, you should use a thinner shaft. If you have a larger or heavier spindle whirl, I guess you would say, then you would want a larger spindle shaft here. So I don't know the exact parameters because I don't make spindles. But that sort of leads to the question that I was hoping to get to in a future video, which is communication between the spinners and other craft makers. So in this case, I'm mainly talking with a carpenter for making these, and describing all of the little nuances. There were still things that I missed, and it was only after getting the second prototype when I was able to more easily articulate what I meant. And then I sent her home with a whole bunch of, I sent her home with a Ply magazine talking about supported spindles to help, and gave her some other pointers about it. But yeah, the tapering here on this supported spindle, because it is narrower here, I get a really, really nice amount of spin on these. Okay, let's see if we got anything else we can talk about real quick. Oh, okay. Wanda, the Salish spinners of the northwest coast, British Columbia, they have historically spun dog hair, and they have used really, really, really large spindles. And I think I actually might have mentioned this in the last live stream, because I remember, or maybe, no, it was in the live stream, we did the premiere for the supported spindle. So if you want to check back to that, I think I linked it in the chat, unfortunately. But if you wanted to head back there and take a look, it's really amazing, because the spinner is seated, and she's got 2 hands on the spindle shaft, right? Like 2 hands like this. And then there's this massive spindle whorl that she's holding. And from the image, it looks like the wool has been sort of like drawn up and hanging down from the ceiling. And so it looks like she's making this very thick rope-like yarn. And it's just phenomenal because as an archaeologist, when you're looking at these small little things, you start to get really, really tedious with, well, they're not exactly perfectly placed perforations in the middle. These wouldn't be spindle whorls. And it's like, I don't know if Wobble matters as much as we keep saying it does, because you're sort of making it all about the tool rather than the creator. And there's a combination, the creator plus the tool impacts the ways that you can produce the product. So does a lot of Wobble really matter? And so maybe yes for new spinners, maybe less so for experienced ones. So that's why I'm keen to see how well this one goes, because these are comparatively similar. So yeah, now let's talk really quickly about these spindles. I think the lightest weight one that I have is 29 grams, and it spins beautifully. Can you guys hear her? She's been sort of scrabbling out the door for the last 20 minutes. Sorry. She has a really bad separation anxiety problem. So I'm going to weigh this, and I'm guessing based on feel, it's probably going to be about 35 grams. Oh, it's 46. So it's 46 grams, and I'm going to measure from this point to this point, and it is, it looks like 10 1/8 inches. Nope, hold on. It's just exactly 10 inches. So again, with spindles, you can see here as a comparison, the length of the shaft actually matters quite a bit, because these aren't necessarily, they're not placed right at the very top point, right? They're set down slightly, and even this one, it's set up from the very bottom, and so they operate more like gyroscopes. And that spinning like a gyroscope actually matters more in the way that they behave when you're rotating them. So if you were to spin this, and if it had a much longer shaft so that it was about as long as this one, it might not spin as well, and any introduction of wobble might be really catastrophic to your ability to use this. So spindle shaft length actually matters quite a lot, and I don't know exactly how it relates to supported spindles, because you're not rotating it freely in the air. So if you look at Navajo spindles, there's a really great video by Clara Sherman, and she's demonstrating a Navajo spindle, and it's basically a long shaft with the spindle whorl more or less in the middle of the spindle, and she's rolling it up against her leg, so the end of it is sitting on the floor. So that is a very large supported spindle, and so this one is actually comparatively small, and there's a whole variety of different shapes and supported spindles for different purposes. So if you've seen a Tockley, they look a bit like this, except the whorl is usually entirely made out of metal, and this part is usually a little taller, and then that is for supported spinning cotton. So I don't know if this being a gyroscope matters as much for a supported spindle as it does for a drop spindle, but the length of the shaft matters in that regard, at least for these. So trying to stay organized here with spinning. So I've been doing these spin tests and taking all the measurements. So this is a black walnut shaft with a dark oak spindle whorl. So it's actually comparatively dense, and so it's a walnut with a dark oak spindle whorl. It was 46 grams and it's exactly 10 inches. So I'm doing all of my spinning tests with Ryland, partially because I just had it on hand, but I also thought that it would be a really great fiber for this process because I have had greater success learning how to use a supported spindle if I operate it more with a wool that has a lot of crimp. Something like Cormo or, well, the Ryland has actually proved to be very nice. Hampshire, Shropshire, trying to think, there's one other, Suffolk, that would be a good option. So, I'm just going to pre-draft this. This is from a bat, and I didn't even card this very well because this was sort of 2 passes. And so you can kind of see there's some lumpy bits in there. But because I'm just using this for testing purposes to make sure that I'm happy with these spindles, and so I can sort of weed out the ones that I don't think spinners would be happy spinning with. Because I mean, if I'm not happy with spinning it, no, I don't want anyone else to be spinning with it. Let's see here. Okay. Yes, my fiber babies, they take a nap usually until about 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. And we had a really sunny day here in Leicester. And as soon as I come down here to do this live stream, the loud one, she has to wake up. Of course. Okay. Okay, so Joy has a suspended spindle. It's 8.5 inches long with a toy truck wheel. That sounds exactly like those initial spindles I used to make when I first started making them, because they're really inexpensive, and for me it was a matter of I don't want the cost of a tool to be a significant barrier between making yarn. And even though you don't technically need a spindle to make yarn, it sort of facilitates it more. And so if someone isn't really interested in spending a lot of money to try out something that maybe isn't for them, if I could make something that is good enough to make yarn, but not so expensive it breaks the bank, then I'm more likely to get more spinners in the future, because I'd rather have more people to talk to and spin with than sit here hoarding all of my expensive tools. So I probably have my original one somewhere. I actually still have a couple of spindles that I made initially. Oh, I'm actually looking at one. I'll grab it. And then we'll get started on the test spin, and I'll lower the camera slightly. I'm sorry, she's just being very loud. So this has hemp on it. And this is, I think, the medium size spindle that I was making in the past. And I didn't have any carpentry skills, so I couldn't cut them down. But this is actually quite long. It's at least 12 inches. Yeah, so it's 12 inches and then a little bit extra for the cup hook. And these are like the little cup hooks that you would use on like to hang stuff from the ceiling or to like hold a wire up. And gosh, it's so old and so beat up. but I think I must have made this back in 2012. But if you watched my live stream when I was trying to figure out how to use my distaff, I always call it distaff, and I'm sorry if I keep mispronouncing it. I didn't have anyone correct me otherwise, and so it just has become commonplace for me. But yeah, I think, yeah, so I was spinning it counterclockwise because it's hemp, and it seemed to have a similar proclivity to spin that direction. But you can see just it's kind of got this wobble, and it's because this length here, it's too long for the weight of the spindle whorl here. So it's not the best thing, but because this is machine made, this is going to be right in the center, and because this is machine made, this is going to be pretty straight. And as long as I put it into this toy wheel at, you know, a perpendicular angle, then it's going to be decent enough for new spinners to learn how to use it. And so these were really, really popular, and I loved being able to send them off to their new homes because I always thought, oh, this is going to be a new spinner. So that's kind of the rationale here with these supported spindles. And I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to get some more suspended spindles. I'm just gonna lower this down slightly so that maybe, can you see that? Oh, not really. Mm-hmm. So if we put that in the bowl, are we happy? Are we happy with that? Maybe I should lower it just a little bit more. I'm gonna lower it a little bit more. Okay. So I have drafted this out a little bit. Oh, the barista, he is playing video games. He actually gave me my coffee already. This was his Christmas gift a few years ago. They're lovely ceramic mugs that I got imported from Japan. And then I did something stupid where I had a sticky key on my keyboard, and instead of putting in my actual address, I put in an address from down the street. And so I had to go down and be like, hey, this gift is coming to your address because of this problem. And I was so pleased that the person who lived there was like, oh no, that's fine. And then when it arrived, he like walked the package down to my house. So that was really nice. So this is the spindle we're working with, I'm pretty sure. I gotta weigh it again just to make sure, because I might have confused myself. Yeah, no, this is the right one. Okay, so I already know that this one is going to be a fast spin because it's got that nice taper right there. And then all I do is basically I shove the wool onto the end, so it's all caught like that. And then I just give it some twists and draft it away a little bit. Once it's got enough twist in there to hold together reasonably well as a yarn, I take it off the end. Right, so I've got this length of yarn, and then all I'm going to do is make a slip knot. So I've taken this and I've put my fingers in, looped it around like that. Inside, looped it around, And so this opening, I'm going to slide that down onto the spindle. So you can see that's the yarn I started. That's the beginning part where I started. And then because I've got this little bulbous area right here, that's going to serve to kind of catch the yarn so it doesn't slide up as I'm going. And then I'm just going to draft it out a little bit to get it underway. Now, if you wanted something more permanent, you could just tie a leader yarn to this and that would be fine. That's actually what I've done with my supported spindle that I bought from Mirkwood Fiber Arts. Oh, what is that? That is a lumpy piece. So hopefully you can see. I will be, well, actually I have posted some videos of these spindles on my Patreon, so if you want to get a much better view of them, then feel free to stop by and consider supporting me. I will be doing more videos for the listings for each one when I get the chance. So I started taking some product photos the other day and then had to go to work. So this spin draft process, this is what makes me think that the wobble is slightly less important, because if it's wobbling really badly maybe, but if there's a little bit of wobble, you won't know, because the yarn, I'm holding it between 2 points, and so the yarn is flipping over the tip, and so it's going to interrupt the smoothness of that spin anyway. The only thing is, when you're manufacturing them, from that point of view, you want it to be as consistent as possible, and so you will want it to have no wobble. But I don't think my expertise with spinning is coming into play during this process. So I think the wobble, if there is any in the spindle, which it seemed from the initial test I was showing you, it seems to spin just fine. I'm sorry. She sounds so pitiful, and she's totally fine. She's just got really bad separation anxiety. I keep meaning to lock her upstairs with our other cat. And unfortunately I was a little distracted when I got started for this, well, just before I got started for the stream today, because someone I went to high school with just died in a car crash, and it was very shocking and surprising, because when I was in high school, we used to call him the Republican. He was very excited to have met and chatted to then President Bush Jr. And when I was younger, some of you might have detected already, I like helping people and making a difference. So I was a student senator when I was in my early college days, so we did a lot of organizing for volunteer activities and, you know, community stuff. So it was kind of upsetting to hear suddenly, because he messaged me about a year ago just to kind of catch up and be like, hey, so what you been up to? And we talked a little bit back and forth, a little bit about politics, and he said some of the nicest things. So, like, I've always had body image problems, and he said, you've always been such a hard worker, and you're so beautiful, and a wonderful person, and it was just it was crazy because it was completely out of the blue. You know, I don't post content that sort of elicits those types of responses. So I think it was a very genuine reflection, but yeah, so it's part of the reason why I'm not actually really wearing any makeup today. So, yeah, I barely got seated here by 4, and so Layla didn't get banished to the bedroom. She was up there in the sunshine. I don't know why she would come down here to bother me. Yeah. You know, based on the previous live streams that I've done, I think you guys have gathered that I'm a bit of a nerd. And he was one of those people who kind of was a bit of an outcast, but also really well liked by people. He never let issues relating to how he looked or how boisterous he was get to him. And you know how high school can be really cruel to people. And I always felt like he handled it really well. It's people like him that I really liked hanging out with nerdy people, because when you aren't, you know, the super popular girl or the really hot guy, you basically end up having more of a personality because you kind of have to. And I know this is probably opening up some wounds, but I was very much an outcast growing up, and it was difficult for me to find my people. Sorry. Yeah. I'll be okay. It reminds me of it just reminds me of all those friends that I've had that, you know, they were very nerdy and they were so good to me, and you know, they're the ones that make high school feel better.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Come here.
What's wrong?
I'm okay.
Okay. You want me to take her?
Yes, please. Thanks. Ugh.
Something went wrong.
Oh, no. Everything is fine. I'm just... It always takes a while to process.
Okay.
So, yeah, just... When you are sort of ostracized because you don't behave normally, or, like, I'm increasingly thinking I have ADHD or maybe autism. I don't know. But I've always felt like I don't fit in, and I've always struggled to maintain friendships the way that some people are, they find it to be completely effortless. And so I've kind of clung to those people who are weird like me. And he was very passionate about what he did. And so, like, that genuineness that comes from just being a really good person and trying to make a difference and not letting position cloud your judgment, it's very inspiring. And so, yeah, just, hearing about this news right beforehand was upsetting because I was reminded about another friend who passed away just before Christmas in 2005. And he was a very nerdy guy, funny, like endlessly funny. He introduced me to The Sims, and I'll never forget because I'm actually playing The Sims 4 right now. And like, they were in the same grade, and so I was just immediately reminded of other people in that situation, being kind of nerdy outcasts, but also completely and totally themselves. Even though you don't necessarily talk to them all that much, you remember them. You remember those elements that make you happy to have known somebody, even if friendships don't persist in the same way. I really enjoyed working with him. He was very smart, and he was a bit like those Republicans who work across the aisle trying to negotiate different interests. He was like that. He was definitely more conservative than me, but I feel like you need to have balance, So it was a big shock to hear this. Dredging up the past, because that's usually what it does. Anyway, so yeah, just getting back to the spindles here, because that's sort of one of the things I wanted to be doing today. Oh god, thanks guys. I thought I would be fine. I considered maybe canceling today, but I'm kind of like a cat where I won't let people know what's wrong with me, and then I'll go off in a corner and be by myself. Just that vulnerability. Now, I think this one being heavier I can already tell by this little demonstration I've done so far that if you wanted to spin a thinner yarn with more twist, then you would be able to do that very well. So this was 46 grams, and I'm already getting quite a lot of twist in this spindle. And I didn't have to work the spindle a lot in order to develop this much twist. So I think if you wanted some initial feedback on these supported spindles, if you want to make a thinner yarn with a lot of twist, you might actually want a heavier spindle like this whirl is, and then draft it thin. So I think if I had a a more nicely carded wool here, I would be able to make yarn faster. So I know that one of the things we've kind of been talking about off and on the last couple live streams is making projects with a spindle versus making projects with a wheel. Obviously, a spindle is going to take longer to produce the same yardage than a wheel will, but sometimes, for whatever reason, people are constrained by budget. Sometimes people are constrained by space. And so if you need your tools to fit into what is essentially a shoebox or boot box, then you're going to be investing in spindles. And so you want your spindle assortment to actually work really well for you. And so if I can do these tests and give you some feedback based on that, I think we'll be able to address some of those people who are wanting to make a specific yarn, but maybe there's not a lot of information out on the internet about why you might want this supported spindle or this other one. Of course, I haven't done a lot of research on this, so there might be something out there already like this, but with anything on the internet, it's easy to get drowned out because there's so much other stuff. So if I'm adding to it, there's just one more Google link to click on, and so hopefully that will balance out. Yes. Oh, fiber therapy. It's totally unscripted, off the rails, anything goes. Yeah, that's actually a pretty decent draft length for one flick of the spindle, and it doesn't have as much twist as you would think, and part of that bounce that you can see there. So if I give this a pull, hopefully you can see that. That's just the Ryland. It has an incredible amount of bounce. I'm just going to give it one more set of twists, maybe two. I kind of stopped it a little soon. So yeah, if you see that kind of curling up on itself there, the little pigtail, then this is the kind of twist I would expect to see if I was spinning this at the wheel or if I was using a suspended spindle. So yeah, I'm going to keep having a play with these to see what the other ones turn out to be like. And because I'm using Ryland for all of these, I'll be able to make comparisons based on the tool itself rather than the fiber, and based on my experience using Ryland, I'll be able to suggest some fibers. So on Knitting Twitter earlier today, they were talking about is it really handmade if you don't have hair knitted into it? And I said the same thing about hand spun. There's one of my hairs in this bat of wool. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. So there's that. The yarn that I've got on here so far. And I'd say I think I've been spinning this for just about 15 minutes. And you know, I think it's well balanced enough where I don't feel like I'm struggling against the spindle at all. I might try to lower this slightly more. Oh, it's gonna be difficult. There, if you might, well, maybe I'll lift up my knee slightly. That way you can maybe see it better. Because I think this one is a real keeper. I mean, I'm not going to keep it. That would be horrible. Hey, look at all these beautiful spindles that you can't buy. I'm going to have to do the same mantra that I do with my my bats, which is I've already earmarked this for the shop, so I can't put it in my stash. I really do have to do that. I have plenty of stuff to spin for myself, so there's no need to put that in there. But yeah, wow, that's a lot of twist that you get from this. I'm really happy with this spindle. Oh goodness. Oh. So I hope everyone is having a good time with their projects that they've brought. If there's anyone else who's asked some questions, I'm sorry I haven't been checking up on chat quite so much. That single is a rubber band. It is a bit like that. In fact, I know that I've talked about this in my Ryland Fiber Talk video, but basically Ryland is kind of like a cousin, maybe like a cousin or maybe a sister to Merino. So this isn't quite as soft, but it is next to skin soft. It's got a great amount of crimp. There's a lot of body to it, and it resists wear extremely well. So I cycle to and from work and around town, and so when I'm, it's the UK, so it's cold pretty frequently, and when it's not cold, it's raining, or sometimes both. So I need to make sure that my hands are nice and warm. So wearing gloves most of the year, that's an essential component. And then when you're cycling, because the way that your hands are gripped like this, the wind kind of just blows through a single layer. So I made a pair of Fair Isle style mittens, but I made them with a lining on the inside, and so that actually holds up really, really well for that. And so I got really, I think it was a 3-ply I did. I got a really nice stitch definition with this yarn, but despite the fact that it's really soft, it has held up very well to any kind of abrasion. Oh gosh, I thought yesterday I came in and I set them down right here and I thought maybe they were still there. They're not. But they've lasted just over a season now, and it's like a season and a half. So I must have finished them in March of 2 years ago. So I didn't really use them for a full season when I first made them, but they've been through a full calendar year and a half. And so no pills, no abrasion, no wear holes, nothing. Absolutely perfect. And they still look great, so the pattern on it is as beautiful as ever. In fact, I know this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but I've been in the habit of playing video games and also knitting, because sometimes there's points where you can kind of stop and wait. So I knitted those mittens while I was playing Divinity Original Sin, and so whenever we were in turn-based combat and it wasn't my turn, I was just knitting those gloves. And it's been a couple years since I played that, so that's how my brain remembers when I must have knitted them, because I remember playing the game in the it was like late winter, early spring of 2020. Oh yeah, because I had just finished them when I went to go visit my parents in the States, and that was just before the pandemic hit. Gosh, I hadn't even thought. Yeah, they're at least 2 years old now. That's great. So, any other questions? Yeah, there should be a text to chat function for YouTube. Should get on the ball with this. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to end up keeping one of these. I know I'm going to keep this really wobbly one because it's going to be useful for videos. But I would like to keep one of these. I won't keep the most perfect ones because I think you guys should be able to experience these. But if they prove to be really popular, I'm going to keep them in stock more on a regular basis. So if you are interested in these, just as a basic inquiry, you can always message me either on Instagram, you can direct message me on Twitter, you can send me an email through expertlydyed.com. I've got that information there too. Oh, yeah, I think they're in the closet in there, but I don't actually hear Layla. She might have calmed down now. Yeah, so part of the reason why I wanted to do this live stream today was because I did my visa application all day last Sunday. And then when that was done, I still had all this paperwork I had to upload, and you have to upload it to the right categories. Otherwise, it can cause delays for your application, and if you miss anything, they can just deny you. And then if you are denied a visa, that's actually kind of considered like a strike against you, and it makes it even harder to get a visa to stay here. So I had to spend a lot of time and energy just making sure that I had all of the documents scanned as they wanted and in the right order and placed in the right section for the document upload part. And so it took me from Monday to Thursday to get all that done. And then I submitted the documents to a document, like it's like a UK sponsored document checker Friday morning, and then I went off to work. So it's been a very exhausting week, just the amount of attention I've been required to devote to that. So I've done little bits. So the yarn that I was talking about in the previous live stream, that has been photographed, and I've just started doing the editing for the photos. So those yarns will be available in the shop. These I started photographing, the ones that I've already done the test spins for. I've been playing. See, the thing with Patreon is it works really, really well to get around the YouTube algorithm problems because as a craft YouTube, we're already very niche, and then if I'm talking about spinning rather than knitting or crochet, it's considerably more niche. And so, yeah, Patreon is really great because I can still put out this content and, you know, have direct connection with enthusiasts. So, I've got a couple of patrons now, so that's been kind of like a spot of sunshine for me this week. So I was considering offering the chance to buy these first to my patrons. But obviously I'm not going to have it exclusive. So I think I might offer these to patrons for first dibs. And then probably in a few weeks I will have all of these ready for sale. I'm probably going to list them both on Etsy and my expertlydyed.com website. And I'm probably going to give a bonus to people who purchase directly from my website because Etsy takes a much bigger percentage of my profits than my website does. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that I give these the thorough once over before I put them up for sale because I've learned from my initial experience with, you know, these spindles that if I want to make a product that's lasting, that people are going to want to continue using, having a combination of it be inexpensive enough, but quality enough, and as a bonus, they're actually really quite pretty. I really love how this dark oak looks, especially when it's spinning. If you can see that. Yeah, so I think this really ticks all the boxes, and they will be affordable for beginners. And I'm going to do kits with these, so if you want some pretty little bats to spin with these, I'm going to be including them. Let's see here. No, I think that one's also oak. This one is actually going to be a lighter weight one, but it's not going to spin quite as fast because it's got a thicker taper here. But yeah, and so the other thing I'm going to do is actually take photos of the flax. Actually, I didn't use flax. The hemp yarn that I was showing in the previous Q&A video that I posted last week. I'm going to have that as a blog, and I'm actually going to get back to making bats. Oh! I just got a message on Instagram from the person who made this, and she's excited to see how they are going to be received. So I can say there's already a few people on the live stream who seem really interested. So she'll be happy because this is sort of like a random request, basically, from me. So yeah. Okay, so do we have any other questions about supported spindles, or maybe some tutorials in the future? Because obviously I want to have more chances to use these so that you guys get some more content based on a tool that you either are already using or want to be using in the future. So you can either put it in the chat or just put it into the comments of this video, and I'll add it to my list of videos that I've got on deck. I'm hoping to do a fiber talk video next week, as well as a blog post about the splicing that I did. So for those of you who haven't seen that community's question and answer video, I'll show you briefly here. There's also I put them in the box here, but these will also be available with a traveling spinning bowl. So if you don't want to put this on a table, they do kind of work nicely on a table, although they're better controlled in a spinning bowl. But it's like a small little disc about like that big, right? And there's the divot in the middle where you put the spindle in there, and it's also got these little feet. They're like a little acrylic feet that are it basically looks like a little wooden button, but doesn't have any holes in it, and it's got these little things on the bottom so that when you put it on a table, or if you want to put it on your knee, it kind of just stays there. And so I was trying to think of ways to make this really portable. So if you want to put this in your luggage and travel somewhere, if you want to do this in the car or on a train during your commute, then you can just have this, together. And the lady who made the like travel sized spinning bowls was really chuffed about this one that she had, because I think the name of the wool is Tonga Tonga. I want to say, I might be saying that wrong. Sorry if I am, but it is breathtakingly beautiful. So it's a similar color tone as this dark oak, except it's like a caramel honey color. So it's really pretty. It's warm, it's bright, it's shiny. It looks like something that you could eat. Yeah, I'll have those available for those of you who don't have a spinning bowl. You'll be able to have a kit that has everything that you need to get going. Or if you want to have, like if you have a spinning bowl already, but you want a travel size one, then you'll be able to just get those separate. And I might in the past, what I've done is I've done a discount on wool whenever you buy a spindle with me. So I might implement that again. So yeah, chuffed. That's a Britishism. So we had a roast chicken last night for dinner, and roasties, which are basically partially cooked potatoes that have been coated with some flour, and then you bake them in a bunch of goose fat, which sounds crazy, but it's so delicious. But in the description for the recipe, you chuff the potatoes. So you rough up the outside so that the powder, the flour has something to stick to, right? That starch. And then when you roast it in the goose fat or duck fat or whatever, then it makes like this really thick coating. And then after you rotate them a couple of times, it crisps up, and it's like eating a French fry, but it's a potato. So, and it's not like a steak fry or anything. It's kind of this beautiful combination of French fry and a baked potato, I guess. If that's yeah. Oh gosh, duck fat. Sorry, it's nearly dinner time here, so I should probably be going. We're eating leftovers and having chuffed roasted potatoes. Anyway, so this is what I was talking about before. The hemp that I spliced last summer. I talked about this in that community video because I did one that was dry, and I also did another one that was wet, and decided that the one that was wet spun seemed to behave better and had fewer of these wispy bits than the one that was done dry. And actually, I don't know if my phone camera will pick this up, but this part here, that's all just twisted fibers. Right there. So this was a join, but the rest of it isn't. It's just, yeah, I'm gonna have to take a photo of this so you guys can see it. It's really nice. I'm gonna be posting photos of this on my blog so you can see better what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to be adding some more bats to the shop. Now I have everyone talking about duck fat and goose fat. And this took me 8 hours to make. So it was pretty crazy. I'll have to delve more into this specifically because it's hemp, not flax. So I think I will be doing a tutorial on how to make this yarn, even if you're not growing your own hemp, which I'm not exactly sure. It could be illegal in some states and in some countries. Hemp was a very popular fiber for clothing in Korea, so I've seen some really beautiful stuff at the National Museum in Seoul. No, I have not gotten an answer about that, but there's been some discussion over on that video. That's definitely worth checking out. So I think it's something that I'm hoping to get more people contributing their answers and their experiences so that I might be able to come up with another video where I talk about this collective research we've all been doing, all the experiences kind of grouped together, to kind of see like why some of this information exists the way that it does. I think it was Evie mentioned something about spinning toe flax, which is the shorter staple that comes from the hackling process. They're usually small pieces like that. she likes to spin that wet, whereas line flax, which is the longer bits, she said she could do either way, wet or dry, and it's fine. Then I've also had another viewer, A Bit Twisted, who has a YouTube channel, so if you're interested, you might want to check out A Bit Twisted. So he's mentioned using the ply with water to kind of smooth everything down, so you can spin it as a single dry and then ply it wet or damp, I guess, without any noticeable impact on the way that it looks. So that's also interesting to consider. So spin dry, ply wet. But yeah, so if you want to like head over there and see what's been posted lately, there might be some more answers. I don't know if there's going to be a definitive answer, but there's definitely some more information there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to skedaddle. Hopefully I'm not the only one who uses that. Because we need to get dinner underway, and we're playing D&D this weekend. So in, typical dice rolling fashion, I rolled very, very poorly last week, and so a deathly encounter with wyverns turned out to be So I have to do a little bit of planning for tonight's session, and then see how things go, which basically has meant that I need to figure out how the enemies would respond to this overwhelming strength from the party. So yeah, so thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. The chatting is really helpful. It's very therapeutic for me. Not being able to go to the guilds on Saturdays anymore, I still need some kind of creative outlet, people who get me. And you guys get me. I get you. And yeah, I will post as many updates as I can manage. Although I'm working the next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I won't be able to do a live stream next week. And I'll probably be busy making a lot of content Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Probably Thursday as well. I need to take a day off one of these days. Haven't decided which one I feel like yet. So, yeah. It's so hard to say goodbye. It really is. But if you had any other questions or comments or suggestions about supported spindles, just pop that below. Any other kinds of fiber-related content that you are interested, I'm always open to suggestions. And yeah, I will see you in the next video and or live stream. Have a good day, you guys. Bye.